Um, Here goes nothing. Welcome to Earth Day 2020, everybody. And I appreciate everybody, taking the time to be here today. Everyone has things they could have done instead, but this is important, and we've got a very awesome lineup for you guys today. So let's get into it. Um, could we please mute all of the panelists for the time being? Thank you. So things are different right now with the COVID, and we're adapting as we can. But just to make sure this goes as smooth as possible, I have a brief slide about just etiquette and kind of how this is going to work. So firstly, this session, just like Marissa mentioned, will consist of 7 brief presentations in a lightning style format. Each presentation will be 10 minutes long with 5 minutes allotted for questions and answers. All participants will be muted during the presentation, but we do encourage questions to be submitted via chat. I see that someone is doing that right now. That's great. We intend to have this be as much of an open dialogue as possible, so all questions are welcome. And lastly, the session is being recorded. We're live. We're going to be uploading this to our website for anyone who wasn't able to attend or for anyone to use in their classrooms, etc. So before we get going here, I want to talk a little bit about why we're here and why this is such an important event in Earth Day's history. If you didn't know, it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and it started in 1970. Some of the early causes for people to be involved with Earth Day, this is just a few that came to mind of very prevalent environmental issues that were going on throughout the 50s and 60s. Here on the far left, there's Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, her best-selling novel that raised awareness about DDT and pesticide use. Also, you have here Cleveland's Cuyahoga River catching fire for the second time in 1969. That actually happened the same year as a very devastating oil spill in Santa Barbara. And of course, everyone thinks about the smoggy air in the Los Angeles basin. These are all kind of things that were culminating before the first inaugural event in 1970. But what really put it together is this man right here on the right named Dennis Hayes. He was the organizer of the very first Earth Day. And on the left here, you have the front page article of the New York Times highlighting Earth Day festivities in New York on April 22nd, 1970. It's estimated that over 20 million people that day stepped outside and protested and, well, not protested, celebrated Earth Day and came together to rise up for this cause. So what has this left us with? It's left us with an unprecedented series of legislative actions. It led to the National Environmental Policy Act in 1970, which subsequently laid the groundwork for the EPA. And it also made all kinds of progress for these issues I previously mentioned. The Endangered Species Act, which was greatly informed by the work of Rachel Carson and her Silent Spring, was created in 1973. Also, the DDT ban in 1972. The Clean Water Act was devised in 1972, and also the Clean Air Act in 1970. So half a decade later, where has this brought us? In terms of biodiversity, bald eagles, which were originally on the first endangered species list, were recently taken off in 2007. The DDT had a very profound impact on their eggs. Now they're doing just fine. They're no longer endangered. The Cuyahoga River is now a thriving waterway. People come there for all sorts of different outdoor activities and recreation. And also the LA skyline is, it's still a work in progress, but pollution is down and lung health is generally up. So 50 years later, Earth Day is still going strong. There's still events all over the world, and you're at one right now. So thank you for being with us here today. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to our first guest. Get a smooth transition here. So right now we have CCEJN, Central California Environmental Justice Network.
Hello, everyone. I'm trying to share my screen, so sorry, as they say, this is new for all of us, including myself. I'm older, so trying to navigate these technologies is first for me. So, but thank you for the invitation. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
So as it was already explained, today is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So congratulations for everyone who's joining across the world to celebrate our Pachamama, our Earth, and to pretty much give her some love and appreciation and gratitude for all what she gives us. And in addition to being today's topic or this year's topic, climate action, there are 4 areas of focus that have been discussed and agreed upon by all the organizations putting together Earth Days. And those four areas are a collaboration to address our food systems. Also, cleanup. We need to remove billions of pieces of trash in different places, from the oceans to our neighborhoods. And of course, Earth Challenge is important. Why don't we start doing more citizen science and just innovative initiatives that address our environment? And last but not least, our climate action. How can we all mobilize to help our Earth? So my presentation, I'll try to go as fast as possible because we just have 10 minutes. We'll try to focus in how the Central California Environmental Justice Network, or CCJN, has done work around these 4 areas that I just described. To begin with, I would say that we were formed in 2000, and our vision is very humble, as you could see here in the screen. Just end environmental racism. Very humble, right? Goal. Well, it's tough because in our Central Valley, where our work is focused, we have some of the most, important or some of the more prevalent examples of environmental racism. And really, frankly, although everybody here in the valley is affected by air pollution or shortage of water, not everybody is affected equally. And that's why the organization was formed. And I think that it is very important for me to start by ensuring that everybody has an understanding of what environmental justice is. If you already are very well versed in this, bear with me. But I would like to start with a definition that the Environmental Protection Agency has about environmental justice, which is barely the fair treatment of people regardless of our race, color, of ethnicity, that all of us are protected equally by laws, regulations, and that we all have access to a clean environment. And this is what we have been doing for the last 20 years. And why in the Central Valley? This image shows you well why. This is an image taken from Cal EnviroScreen 3.0. Some of you are very well familiar with this tool, but for you others that this might be new, this is produced by one of the offices of our Cal EPA agency, and it crunches data from different regulatory entities and come up with this index. So the red and the darker orange areas are the ones that are more heavily affected by pollution, but at the same time, there are areas that are where we have more social vulnerability. And as you can see here in this map, this is the Central Valley. So that's why we believe that our work is so important. And all of you are experts in why we have all this pollution, but it doesn't, it wouldn't take a lot to just mention some of these sources of pollution. Of course, pesticides and fertilizers that are used by our agricultural industry. But we also are a large producer of the oil that is extracted in our state. Indeed, 85% of the oil production in the state happens in Kern County. And we have hundreds of dairies, and not small dairies. In average, our dairies in the Central Valley are about 10,000 animals per dairy. And of course, we also have waste disposal facilities. We have the largest active biomass facility in the state. It's in our valley floor in Fresno. And we have, of course, the highways and the warehouses. So it's not surprising that we have all these environmental hazards, but at the same time, we have a lot of social vulnerability, meaning that people who are more affected are people who are of lower income, have lower formal education, have their English fluency like mine, it's very limited. And, that's why we are working in the Central Valley. And we do this by educating, empowering, but also advocating for changes. And we do this in collaboration. So that's why we are a network. We cannot do this alone. And we work with many of you here in this call. So specifically about the 4 areas that I mentioned, uh, food systems. Before I explain what are we doing around food systems, let me just say why this work is important. In California, in 2017, over 200 million pounds of pesticides were applied in our fields, and over 60% of those pesticides were applied in the San Joaquin Valley. Just in Fresno alone, over 34.5 thousand pounds of pesticides were applied. And it's not applied equally. Our children of color are more affected. So while our Hispanic children comprise 54% of the kids attending public schools in the Central Valley, those attending schools where pesticides are applied in a close distance are 61% of our children. And even only in Fresno County alone, 131 of our public schools have a nearby application of pesticides. So enough about the problems. What are we doing to fix this? We're supporting agroecology. Agroecology meaning a form of agriculture where you are respecting the environment as a whole. You are taking into consideration the water conservation. You are taking into consideration soil health and biodiversity, and also access to fresh fruit, and of course, air quality. And we're doing this by partnering with organizations to create the Central Valley Agroecology Center, which will be offering trainings and all kinds of resources for farmers, especially small farmers of color, farm workers who want to become farmers, and any other resident who is interested in learning about this. And this is the team of people behind this idea. The second thing that is an area of focus for this year's Earth Day celebration is cleaning. And we have already been doing that. These are just 2 images of community cleanups that we organize. People who are concerned about illegal dumping in their neighborhoods, like these images here in the south part of the city of Fresno, they call us and we bring the supplies and we collect or call up for volunteers. And we do this cleanup so that the neighborhoods and especially these alleyways in the south part of the city of Fresno where kids are walking to go to school are clean. And in terms of waste, I really want to bring to your attention that the Valley is home to the only two hazardous waste facilities in the entire Western United States. And those are in the Valley. Those are in Cattleman City and in Bottom Willow. And that was not a coincidence. It's not like, oh, well, it was bad luck that they bring these facilities here to us. In 1984, the California Waste Management Board commissioned a report, and this is known as a serial report. And what they told them is like, you know what? Put those facilities in small rural communities where there's a majority of people of color, people older, people with less education than high school. And that's how these facilities end up in Bottom Willow and Kettleman. And we are still joining our local partners in those areas to fight these facilities, to oppose their expansion, and to make sure that the Department of Toxic Substance Control do everything in their power to make sure that these facilities operate within the with proper regulations. The third area was citizen science. Am I at time?
Yeah, you have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so really briefly, we have been working documenting the pollution caused by the oil industry in Kern County. And we don't do this alone. What we have been doing is citizen science projects where we train residents to collect grab samples, to put monitors in their neighborhood so that we can capture VOCs and other air pollutants. And using this data, we were able to win different policies. For example, on the left-hand side, you have a photo in Arvin, where residents were able to pass an ordinance of a 300-foot setback between new oil wells and their homes. On the right-hand side, we delivered 90,000 signatures in collaboration with many organizations to oppose fracking in our public lands, which is one of the newest ideas of our president at the moment. And then we have the IVA reporting network, which allows residents to report environmental problems in their community, and you have the website right there. And I will just end up by saying that there's many ways in which you can get involved. You can sign a postcard asking the state of California to pass a setback between new oil wells and homes. You can add your name to a letter opposing all extraction and fracking on public lands. You can also join the Youth versus Oil, which is organizing climate strikes in September across the state, and we want to have a solid representation of the Valley. You can also attend the permaculture workshops that we will be putting up, organize a cleanup in your community, and something that you can do even at your home is reduce your carbon footprint. Buy less, recycle more, compost, grow your own food. And I will just end here with my contact information. There's our website, my email, my phone number, so that you can reach us and become involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Naimeen. So right now we'll do a 5-minute Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, they could submit them in the questions or in the chat. Just go ahead and send them in. But as we get started, we do already have a question. Can CCEJN give an example of a time that they were a part of an IVAN report and what violation was being reported and what outcome was achieved?
Wow, there's so many, but I'll explain one of the most significant ones. In 2014, we received a report of a community, a small community in Arvin. This is in Kern County, where there was a strong smell like rotten eggs. And when we went, we were able to take a grab sample and determine that there were super high levels of gases, VOCs. And then these families, unfortunately, were evacuated for 9 months. And the company responsible for the leak, of course, had a large fine. But not only that, we were able to determine that there was a gap. The agency that regulates the pipelines that where gas runs didn't have authority to regulate pipelines that were under 4 inches of diameter. And we were able to partner with the local assembly member, Rudy Salas, to introduce a piece of legislation that closed that gap. So now this state agency has authority, and more importantly, they are constantly checking that these pipelines are, well maintained to prevent these leaks from happening again.
Awesome, thank you, Naimeen. We have another question. Is there a map available that shows what schools are near areas that are being affected most by pesticides in Fresno County?
Yes, there is a map, and if you can email me, I can send you that link. Actually, the study that I referred to was conducted by the Public Health Institute in partnership with the California Department of Public Health, and they do have that map available.
Okay, great. There's another comment and question. I feel like there's so many things we could do and it can feel to me like it's too overwhelming. Do you think that CCJEN could help the community maybe focus on one goal each year or something like that?
That's a really good question. I think that the CCJN has one thing that makes us different from other organizations are that we don't focus only on one issue area. Some organizations focus only on air, other on quality, others on pesticides. The reason why we have decided to tackle all of the above is because we try to be responsive to the needs of the communities. And if the communities are telling us that these are the burdens that they're facing, pesticides, water, air pollution, those are the campaigns that we run. But we really are a very grassroots organization, so we listen and we prioritize the things that our community members tell us to do. So that's how we decide which are the campaigns that we're going to work on a particular year.
Okay, so a quick follow-up question. So does that just determine, it just depends on which communities you're in, or which communities you're focused on at
Yes.
that time?
So for example, a lot of the work that we're doing around oil, gas, and the citizen science examples that I gave are based in Kern County. So we're not doing that in Fresno or Kern. But however, for example, other communities affected by oil extraction, like in Kings County and the western part of Fresno, around the Coalinga area, they asked us to come and start doing these citizen science projects in their community. And we're in the process of replicating those there.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Naimeen. Do we have time for any more questions, Fink, or are we on to our next panelist?
Probably move on, but if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can try and answer them through the chat.
Yeah, and I know this is going to be recorded, and I don't have a problem if you want to have a copy of my presentation. Feel free to email me, because I'll be more than happy to share that with you if that's of a good resource. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Well, real quick before, we'll just have one more question. I'm curious if you think that environmental justice might be more accepted by privileged populations if it's called equity instead.
Maybe, yeah, I think so. Sometimes semantics is what we need to work with. But for us, I'm not afraid, and I'm not, shy away of using the words that we use. We bluntly say we are against environmental racism because, in our eyes, that's what it is. But if some people feel offended with the term, we are not against using something else. But definitely, as in my first slide we had, part of our vision is for do health equity. So we're not saying that we only work with, people of color. We work with everybody that is interested in having a clean environment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naimeen. I'm really glad you were able to make it today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Naimeen. Great presentation. We're going to move on now, I guess, then to Citizens Climate Lobby. We have Don Giady, Devin Carroll, and Connie Young who will be presenting some slides on behalf of Citizens Climate Lobby.
Okay.
Don, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I could hear Connie. There's Don. Are we missing someone else?
And Devin Carroll.
Devin Carroll, yeah. Connie's going to speak first, and then I'll speak, and then Devin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Devin, are you able to bring your slides? There we go.
Okay, awesome.
Very good.
Thank you.
And Devin, press the play on there. There you go. Thank you. So good afternoon and happy Earth Day. Thank you to the Fresno State Sustainability Club for hosting this awesome event and for inviting Citizens Climate Lobby and the other organizations to participate. My name is Connie Young, and I'm the leader of the local chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, also known as CCL. CCL is a nonprofit, nonpartisan grassroots advocacy organization. Next slide, please, Devin. Focused on national policies to address climate change. We think the solution to climate change is democracy, and we're using our voices as citizens to create a more livable world. The policy we support is called Carbon Fee and Dividend, and it forms the basis of legislation presently in Congress called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, or HR 763. In order to generate the political will necessary for passage of the Energy Innovation Act, we train and support volunteers to build relationships with their elected officials, the media, and local communities. Our approach is always respectful and nonpartisan. We focus on shared values rather than on partisan divides. Founded in 2007, CCL now has 583 active chapters, both in the United States and in over 30 countries around the world. The Fresno chapter began in 2014 and has over 1,200 members and supporters. Our chapter's 5 teams provide plenty of ways to be involved. The grassroots outreach team participates in community events and talks with people about climate change, CCL, and HR 763. The chapter development team welcomes new members, hosts chapter meetings and other activities, and runs the chapter. Media team members educate the public and lobby our members of Congress by writing letters to the editor and op-eds, giving radio and TV interviews, and posting on social media. The lobbying team directs our communication with local members of Congress and their staff in writing, by phone, and in person, both in district and on Capitol Hill. The leader outreach team coordinates presentations like this one. It also facilitates meetings with community leaders and seeks individual and group endorsements for the Energy Innovation Act. Now, I'd like to introduce a special guest.
Yeah,
We need to switch to Don.
Switch to me. Are you on me?
Yeah, you ready? Should I give your slides or are you?
Not just yet. Hi, everybody. Dr. Earth here. Happy Earth Day to everybody, and thank you, Connie. Listen, honestly, I'm a little bit concerned this morning. This morning I got a call from my mother, Mother Earth. You may have heard of her. Anyway, she's not feeling too well. She's actually developed a bit of a fever. She started a cough and coughing up some brownish soot-like stuff. And most worrisome, she's not breathing too well. She's starting to retain carbon dioxide. And so she asked me what I could do for her. I said, well, I'm going to look for a medicine. And actually, I think I have found one. So Devin, if you would show the first slide here, it's called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, also known as HR 763. It's in Congress right now. And it's got 80 co-sponsors. It's attracted both Democrat and Republican support. And there's three main provisions. First of all is the carbon fee. So the carbon fee is put on all fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. It's starting low, and then it's going to go up a little bit each year. And what this does, it moves the whole economy toward cleaner energy, and people will be buying the cheaper options, which will involve cleaner energy. And then all the money from this carbon fee goes into the carbon dividend. And this dividend is allocated in equal amounts to each American household to spend as they see fit. And the government does not keep any of this money. The third provision is the border carbon adjustment. This is in order to protect US companies and jobs from goods that are imported from other countries that don't have a carbon fee. So it'll be something like a tariff on those goods from those countries. So why is this bill something that we should all support? Well, number one, it's effective. As it says on the slide there, it's going to cut carbon emissions by 40% over the first 12 years of this policy. Number two, it's good for people. It's estimated by the 10th year of this policy, the average family of four will receive almost $400 per month in carbon dividends. And next, it's good for people's health. It's estimated that almost 300,000 lives will be saved by the year 2030 due to decreased air pollution. And finally, it's good for the economy. Over the first 10 years of this policy, over 2 million jobs will be created. So that's it in a nutshell. And oh, just a second, I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Oh, Mom? Oh, hi, Mom. Listen, I was just going to call you. I've just been discussing this solution. I think we have some medicine for you. Yeah, I think it's really going to help you if we just get everybody to support this bill in Congress. What's that? Oh, I love you too, Mom. Okay, got to go. Okay, now, Devin.
Great job. Okay. Hi,
Devin,
I'm
at the Congress here.
my name is Devin Carroll, and I am the lobby team leader for CCL Fresno. Would you like to be a citizen lobbyist? It's not that hard, and although you do need to practice and prepare before a lobby meeting. The word lobbyist often conjures up a professional who gets paid to lobby Congress to pass legislation for a special interest, such as a big bank or coal company. A lot of lobbying is done by citizens like you and me who feel strongly about an issue and volunteer to join a lobby team. It's actually fun to lobby for Citizens Climate Lobby because we get excellent support at every level. The National CCL's office has paid staff that informs us of the mood of Congress and gives instructions on the best kind of language to use or to avoid. California has very active leadership, and CCL Fresno is one of the most active and well-run chapters in the state. Woohoo! In past years, CCL Fresno has sent teams of 3 to 5 local volunteers to the CCL Conference and Lobby Day in June in Washington, D.C. This year of the pandemic, our lobbying will be done by video or phone. This opens up an opportunity for people who normally would not have the time or resources to fly to Washington. But we can put together balanced teams with students, business leaders, conservatives and liberals, farmers, religious leaders, representatives of environmental justice, and so on. Fresno is split between 3 members of Congress, so we put together lobby teams for all 3, Jim Acosta, TJ Cox, and Devin Nunes. Lobby team members need to know about our bill, HR 763. It also helps to know about competing bills. Republican leaders have a list of 13 bills related to greenhouse gas emissions. So when we talking to staff of Devin Nunes, we first study those bills. Most of them would be helpful, although they are not strong enough to solve the problem. Most of them have some bipartisan support. They emphasize incentives for drawing CO2 out of the air and either sequestering or using the CO2 for products. These bills would be good if passed in addition to HR 763. It's our job to point that out to Devin Nunes and his staff. The Democrats are also doing a lot of work with, of course, the Green New Deal, but also there's at least 5 bills in Congress that put a fee or a tax on carbon dioxide. Other lobbying tasks include talking to in-district staff, making phone calls, and writing letters to your member of Congress. And now we can answer any questions that you have.
Devin, we still have 4 slides.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, we have to go back to finish up what,
2 minutes to go.
hold on here. Okay, I'm going to get back to here. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Devin. So you may learn more about Citizens Climate Lobby during an informational session online or by phone any Wednesday at, Devin, sorry, need the first slide.
Sorry, that's not working.
I'm sorry, learn more about CCL.
Supposed to go up, I'm sorry.
Session
I don't know how I
online
got
or
away
by
from that.
phone. Any Wednesday at
Is this
5
the
o'clock.
one?
There we go. Yeah.
There, okay. Sorry about that.
Register for it at cclusa.org/intro. You can join CCL at no cost by texting to join at 619-675-7507 or go to our website at citizensclimatelobby.org and join there. You're welcome to come to our next meeting on Zoom. It will be on Sunday, May 10th, which is Mother's Day at 7 o'clock. Check our Facebook page for details or join CCL to receive meeting notices. And here are the many ways you may connect with us. Thank you for joining us for this presentation. And now we'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Devin. I'm really glad you guys were able to come. So we do have a few questions. First, how does a carbon tax stack up against the current cap and trade system in California and Canada?
I can take that. The carbon tax is easier to administrate. It starts at the wellhead, and so the only people that need to keep track of what's going on are the energy companies. A cap and trade system like we have, it's the end users, the power companies or the automobiles or whatever that have to keep track of how much carbon is being produced. So it's a lot easier. Also, one difference, the money that's being used, the California Carbon Fee and Dividend uses the money for things like high-speed rail or helping farmers stop using methane or whatever, whereas our bill gives all the money back to the people as dividends.
And I would add that one thing that businesses like about a carbon tax or carbon fee, as we're proposing, as opposed to cap and trade, is that it's far more predictable because the price goes up gradually every year, whereas with cap and trade, the price on carbon credits and permits fluctuates every year. So businesses have a hard time planning ahead.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question that we have in the chat is, I'm curious to know how the carbon dividend will affect undocumented families. Will they receive any of the money?
Unfortunately, no. As usual, the undocumented get the short end of the stick here. Their costs will go up and they will not get the dividends. People with green cards, Social Security numbers, they will get it, but not the undocumented, as usual.
And then we have 3 more questions, so we'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. Great job, guys. Always nice to hear from you. I'm wondering how we can convince people opposed to universal basic income to support this.
That's a good question. People that don't want to have income redistribution, this is actually a form of income redistribution, and the people with low incomes will gain from this more than the people with high incomes. But it's hard to persuade people that don't want to have income redistribution, because that's kind of what it is. It can be analogous to the Alaskan gas dividends that they get up there. We like to, most people seem to think that's a good idea, but.
Yeah, but I might just also comment that when you give a dividend to people, you're rewarding them for good behavior, okay? And you know, nobody likes to sacrifice without getting something in return. And economists have pointed out that when you get a dividend back from the government, you tend to think well of the policy. And so it's a good incentive for people to go green.
And we're actually seeing right now that all of a sudden the country is accepting these checks of $1,200 that are being sent out to everybody, or almost everybody, because there's a crisis going on. And as the climate crisis becomes greater and more obvious to all of us, I think we'll understand that we have to do something about it. And this is something that's effective and fair.
Okay, let's take one last question and then try to move on. You're muted, Marissa.
Sorry. Okay, we'll answer one last question, and then if Connie, Dawn, or Devin could answer the questions in the Q&A, I think you should be able to type up answers, and then we'll answer the one in the chat. How long has Citizens Climate Lobby Fresno chapter been active for?
We were founded in 2014.
Okay, awesome. So are you guys able to answer the questions in the question box?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next panelist, Michael.
We have Bill Bright and Maureen Blanc from Charge Across Town. I'm going to go ahead and get your slides going right now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific.
I can't hear Bill yet, though.
Okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, hello, Fresno State. And that was a tough act to follow, but we'll give it a shot. So happy Earth Day. Thank you to the Sustainability Club for inviting us online with you today. I'm Maureen Blanc. I'm the director of Charge Across Town, and I'm here with Bill Bright, who's our electric vehicle ride and drive manager. So what I'm going to do is give you a short introduction to Charge Across Town, and then I'm going to hand it over to Bill to talk about some of the current work that we're doing around electric vehicle adoption here in the Central Valley. So if you want to go to the next slide. Great. So Charge Across Town was founded about 8 years ago in the Bay Area to help get cities EV ready and to really help California reach its zero emission vehicle goals. As you guys are well aware, we have a huge goal. This is, I think, the third governor that we've worked with to get 5 million electric cars on the road by 2030. So our mission is to reduce pollution in California by promoting the adoption of zero emission vehicles. We work across all of California. A huge amount of our work right now is in the Central Valley, which Bill's going to talk about, but we work with community organizations, local government, and what we really do is work with consumers. We're not a policy group. We're not a lobbying group. We work directly with consumers and in communities around the state. So we bring the electric vehicles, the cars, the charging technology, all the rebate programs that are available, along with our partner organizations, to cities and neighborhoods across the state. We've been doing that for 8 years. At our events, we let people experience electric vehicles. They can take free test drives in a non-sales environment. They can take them out for a spin, ask questions of dealers, ask questions of other EV owners and drivers. So we really are very much consumer focused. And again, we're not advocating or selling anything. We're really just letting consumers check these cars out and see them for themselves. So if you want to go to the next slide. So we've been working in the Central Valley for quite some time. One of our seminal events is called EV Week. It started in San Francisco in 2012, and we've been able to host portions of it across the Central Valley. We've been in Fresno in 2015, Bakersfield in 2015, 16, and 17, and these have all been free events for the public. They've been held in partnership with some of the community organizations out there. They've been in shopping malls, at parks. We also did we're also currently doing the 2018-2020 Ride and Drive events, which Bill will talk about, across the Central Valley, mostly on the 99 corridor from Stockton to Bakersfield. We partner with local community organizations. Some of the groups we've worked with have been the San Joaquin Valley EV Partnership, Project Clean Air, the Valley Air District, and the EV Perks group at Bakersfield. We also do workplace events where we go in where there's large numbers of employees. We did a big event with the PepsiCo factory out in the Madeira area where we had employees come out and test drive cars. And I think in all transparency, we work very closely with Marissa, Michael, and a lot of the students on the ground in the Central Valley. As a matter of fact, you guys sort of are our backbone of staff out in the Central Valley. We work with the San Joaquin Delta College, with the University of the Pacific, California State Universities at Fresno and Merced, and of course, Fresno State. So if you go to the next slide, just some of the other work that we do. So California leads the way in EV adoption, as we have seen. We're half of national sales. We are somewhere around the 700 to 800,000 numbers of electric vehicles here in California. We have been at the forefront of helping push people over to electric cars. We've done 77 ride and drive events across the state. 20% of those are in what we call neighborhoods of opportunity. I think the state calls them low income disadvantaged. I hate that term. I think it's really areas of opportunity. We do a lot of gatherings of experts, EV panels and EV showcases. We've been in 30 main cities, both urban and suburban. And then Bill will talk a little bit more about this, but everything we do is data-driven. We survey consumers before they do test drives, after they do test drives, and then 3 months later to see what they've actually done. We do follow-up surveys to see after their test drive, did they go to a dealer? Did they talk to other EV owners? Did they go online? And ultimately, did they adopt an EV? So we've been tracking this for quite some time, and we've been able to sort of track a 25% zero emission vehicle adoption rate across all of our programs, which we're quite proud of. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is the current program that we're working on in the Central Valley. It is managed by Valley Clean Air now, and I believe it's underwritten by the Valley Air District. But as you guys are well aware, the San Joaquin Valley has a large number of older cars that do not meet emission standards. And we are partnered with Valley Clean Air to bring used EV test drives to their events. So the tune-in and tune-up events, which have been running for quite some time across the Central Valley and have been quite successful, is a smog repair and vehicle replacement program. We have come in with used EVs to show folks who may want to trade in their older car that can't pass smog inspection, how they can drive away, basically almost with a free vehicle. There's a $9,500 financial incentive to replace your car with either a plug-in or all battery electric vehicle. So we bring the cars, we show them, we let them test drive it, and it's been a very successful program. So I'm going to hand it over to Bill, who can go deeper into the work that we're doing there.
Thanks, Maureen. Well, yeah, I wanted to highlight the work that Michael and Marissa have done, helping to recruit fantastic teams to help us with the events. We have had teams of 6 to 10 people, and with some great participants, regular members repeatedly coming out, including Eddie Robles, Danny Bustos, Diego Casillas, Josh Palavex, and many, many others. Really want to say thank you to your efforts and your support. Let's go on to the next slide. Maureen mentioned we're data driven. We measure engagement every stage of the event, and we have a pre-survey that we try to survey as many people as we can before they get into the cars. We measure drivers, passengers, and in-car experiences, which basically over the last since about I guess late 2018, we have had over 2,500 in-car experiences, which means drivers driving multiple cars, passengers with them, and we've replaced close to 1,250 cars over that time, averaging almost recently about 100 cars per month. Okay.
You have about a minute left.
Oh, wow. Okay. So basically, what we've done is with our surveys, we measure people's behavior and attitudes. As you can see, most people have not driven an electric car. And then we also ask their perception of electric cars before they drive. Go to the next one. We also ask how many miles they drive. Let's see here. How many miles they drive per day. Basically, you can see 75% of the people drive less than 50 miles a day, which is great for plug-in electric cars because you can recapture that by charging overnight. And you can see most families have more than one car. So 77% of the people that we interact with have more than one car, which means potentially one of those cars can actually be replaced by a plug-in vehicle. The next slide introduces you to what a plug-in electric vehicle is. There's two types. One is a 100% battery, and one is a plug-in hybrid. And then we have just an informational slide on charging. Basically, there's 3 different types of charging that's available to people. One is 120 volts, which is a regular standard household plug, 220 or 240 plug, and then also a DC fast charger, which is mainly you'll find in commercial and public settings. Okay. Go on to the next one if you want.
All right, so we're actually at about the 10-minute mark, so
okay,
we'll probably move on to the question.
Yeah, just give me one more time, 1 more minute here. Let's go to the next one real quick. So as you can see here, this is a change of perception, basically. After the ride and drive, 90% of the people felt that the electric vehicles were very good versus 20% prior to the ride and drive. And the last slide would be, you can see basically test drives are significantly improved results of the people that started the process to replace their car. 75% of those actually completed the transaction versus 47% who did not take a test drive. So the test drive program in the Valley is very, very successful, and we appreciate the support from Fresno State and Michael and Marissa. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Maureen. Okay, so we have quite a bit of questions coming in. We'll start with, I'm in the Sacramento Valley. Are there any events held up this way?
Oh, yes. Well, right now we're on hiatus, as you guys are well aware. But we have a very robust program going with the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, SMUD, and we've been doing events with them for 3 years. Unfortunately, the events for April and the events through June have been postponed, and we are hoping to reschedule them. But if you drop me an email, I'll add you to our mailing list. But we do many, many events, including the State Fair and the Sacramento Auto Show. And we'll be doing events up in Folsom, in Elk Grove, and all over the greater Sacramento area.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see. It seems like there's been a lot of good work on domestic transportation. Is there a plan for shipping/trucking EV adoption, or is there another technology that industrial transport should use?
That's a great question. We don't focus specifically on that, but there are a lot of organizations in Sacramento whose sole purpose is really the electrification of fleets, of trucks, of semis, et cetera. An organization to check out is CalStart. They've been around a long time, and their focus really is on looking at the manufacturers and the technologies to really make the whole transportation sector electric.
Great. Which manufacturers and dealerships do Maureen and Bill themselves see at the front of the push for low-cost, zero-emission vehicles in the Valley? Could they speak a bit on the growth of the availability of charging stations? That's a really good question.
Bill, do you want to talk about the cars?
Sure. We've been dealing with, well, the Valley CAN program has several used car dealerships that are approved to work with the attendees and the people wanting to replace their vehicles. We specifically rely on Rose Motors, who has a dealership in Modesto. And so as far as used vehicles, there are several dealerships throughout the Valley that are approved and have good business practices.
And as far as charging stations goes, we need a heck of a lot more. Charging is the #1 hurdle we hear across California. What's interesting is in the Central Valley, as we're working with folks who are buying a used EV, they're mostly looking at charging it probably at home, but we need to see much more level 2, which is the 2 to 3 hour chargers, as well as fast chargers going into the 99 and 5 corridor. I know Electrify America, PG&E, a lot of money is being thrown at infrastructure. So it's coming. It's not coming fast enough for how we would like to see it, but it is coming. And ideally, you know, you should see charging stations as frequently as you see gas stations.
Yeah, definitely.
I think in the interest of time, we should move on. Thank you, Bill and Maureen. That was a great presentation.
Yes, there are more questions in the chat. So if either Maureen or Bill wants to answer those, please do.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to share my screen right now for Destiny Rodriguez of the Climate Center.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say happy Earth Day to everyone here today. It's really exciting to see so many of our partner organizations and so many youth and just people in general on this event today. And it's just really inspiring. So I wanted to share that. My name is Destiny Rodriguez, and I work for the Climate Center. I am the regional community relations person for the Climate Center, and what we are is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are based in Santa Rosa, but I work and live here in the Central Valley. So our mission is to deliver rapid greenhouse gas reductions at scale, starting here in California. And one of the ways we're doing this is by advocating community choice energy. Next slide, please. So what is community choice energy? Community choice energy is a local program that buys and can generate electricity for businesses and residents. And one of the things that you're going to hear me refer it to is CCA. The legal name for community choice energy is actually community choice aggregation. I just prefer to call it community choice energy because it's a little bit more understanding of you know, people understanding that this is an energy agency. So community choice energy agencies are not for profit. They are local agencies, and they can be replicated and are being replicated throughout the state. Next slide, please. So this is a really great visual of explaining what community choice energy is. Essentially, it is responsible for the purchasing, procurement, and generation of energy. It's still a partnership with the investor-owned utility. The investor-owned utility still delivers your energy, maintains your lines. You still get a bill every month from your investor-owned utility. The only thing that changes is the source of the energy, again, where it's produced, where it's procured, and how it's purchased. And the reason that this is so important is because where your energy comes from and how it's produced has a lasting impact on our environment. Until recent years, historically, investor-owned utilities have actually purchased from dirty sources of energy, such as fossil fuels and coal. And we've never had a choice or a say in those decisions. But with community choice energy, you do. Next slide, please. So this is an example of what an energy bill looks like. I'm sure all of you have an energy bill at home. The reason I put this slide is because I wanted to explain that there is no new fee, there's no new tax, no new measure for community choice energy. It relies on the revenue that's already existing with your current bill. So the only thing that changes on your electric bill is a line item where it says generation, and it's just a name change. So next slide, please. So where is this happening? It's actually happening all over the state of California, believe it or not. And surprisingly, a lot of people here in the Central Valley have never heard of the concept of community choice energy. We're actually the half of the state that's not really been implementing this yet, but I'm hoping that with help from people today and from other organizational leaders that are on this event today, maybe we can get some more action going here in the Central Valley. Next slide, please. So currently there are 19 operational agencies in the state of California. That equates to over 160 cities and about 20 counties. And hundreds of elected officials agree that this model can help bring local revenues, create transparency, and literally brings the power back into the hands of the community. Next slide. So currently there are over 11 million customers that are currently being served by community choice energy agencies throughout the state. And this is serving more than half of California's electricity load. I included CalCCA in this slide because they are a great resource if you'd like to learn more about other community choice agencies in our state. Next slide. So this is an example of some of the existing community choice agencies here in our state. There are two types of models for governing authorities. One is a single jurisdiction, which City of Fresno, we're pretty large. We could actually do something like this on our own. The other is a joint powers authority, and that would be a partnership with the cities within the county, or the county and the cities. And that actually is my favorite because it also includes our unincorporated areas. Next slide. So what are the benefits of community choice energy? Well, it creates friendly competition with the investor-owned utilities, where we've never had that before. So because of that, it can actually stabilize your energy rates, sometimes even reducing energy rates as well. But instead of seeing your bill keep going up and up and up in the summertime, you actually start seeing your bill stable, which is quite a thing. One of the other things that is really beneficial about community choice energy is that it is under local control, which creates transparency. And this is great because you can actually have conversations with your rate setters, which would be your local elected government officials. One of the other benefits is economic benefits. It is a green job creator. I'm sorry, I'm getting, okay. It is a green job creator.
Keyshawn, can you please mute yourself? Sorry about that.
Thank you, no problem. So it does create green jobs within the solar field and renewable generation of green energy fields. So currently there's over 4,200 jobs that have been created through community choice energy agencies in our state. It's also great for improvement of air quality, which is something we currently need. I mean, right now our air is beautiful, but under the circumstances in the future, that could change. With community choice energy agencies, with the focus on renewable energy and also on focus on electrification of transportation, this can help clean our local air quality. Next slide, please. So, back in 2018, and I apologize, I should have updated this slide, but we're actually over 2,000 megawatts of new renewable energy that has been built. And again, it supported over 4,200 jobs in the state of California. Please go back. As you can see in this map, we already have existing solar farms and existing infrastructure. We're just not tapping into it, but we should be. Next slide. So currently, community choice energy agencies have saved over $90 million in customer savings. That's huge. Next slide. Where is this happening? Well, it is happening over the state, but there is some interest here in the Central Valley. And here are some cities that are considering community choice energy, and Fresno is one of them. But again, we need your encouragement to get this going off the ground. Next slide.
2 minutes left.
So roughly 300 million leaves the county of Fresno every year. We did an economic study back in 2016, and that could be roughly about 100, 200 to 300 million. But if you do the math, that's a lot of money that could be funneled back into our county. And that money can be used for community tailored programs. Next slide. So what are the risks? Regulatory, legislative, and market. There's risks with everything, but with the current agencies, they're still providing their customers savings, they're still providing clean energy, they're still providing revenues for their communities. So despite risks, they're still thriving. Next slide. So what can you do? You can help us by educating the community about community choice energy, that this is a viable option for this area, and help us to encourage elected leaders to evaluate community choice energy more seriously. You can also sign on to our Friends of Community Choice Energy list, which is on our website. And our website is www.cleanpowerexchange.org. And I can put that also in the chat for people to look at. Next slide. So it starts at home. And because today is Earth Day, it's more important than ever that we accelerate existing state policies and existing policy timelines. We need to accelerate climate action now. Could you click on that for me, Michael? Just click on the banner. So what I'm, oh, okay, never mind. So what I'm asking folks today to do is to please endorse the Climate Safe California campaign. It takes 2 minutes of your time to make a lasting impact for our home state. And I can share the link in the chat, and hopefully on the break, if you want, just go on there, read it, endorse us, help our home state. Next slide. Oh. So, okay. So I just wanted to say thank you, and trying to keep on time so we can respect our other panelists. But if you have questions, I'm happy to take some questions right now. Please reach out if you want to help our efforts. If you would like to volunteer, learn more, please reach out to me. And that is my personal cell phone number, so you can send me a text and I will answer it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Destiny. If you want to leave that screen up, Michael, with her contact information while she answers the following question. So we have one question in right now. Is community choice energy the only available, is community choice energy only available to businesses, or are residents able to access this as an option as well? Can you speak more about how the infrastructure would look like locally and where the renewable energy would come from?
So to answer I think that's 2 questions actually in one. So to answer the first question, right now, Community Choice Energy Agency is something that has been talked about at the City of Fresno. We're barely in the exploration stages of that. So there is no other option at this time. Your only energy provider would be PG&E. But if we were to have Community Choice Energy, you would have the choice of staying with PG&E or becoming a Community Choice Energy agency customer. And I do want to mention that it is an automatic enrollment. So if the city were to choose to do this, you would automatically be enrolled. But then at that point, you can choose to opt out. And what was the other question, Marissa? I'm sorry.
Can you speak more about how the infrastructure would look like locally and where the renewable energy would come from? And then we have one more other question.
Okay, I'll try to answer these quickly. So as far as the infrastructure and what that would look like, that's up to our elected leaders, and that's up to our community. That means that you have a voice to make the type of energy system that you would like here locally. But currently, for if the City of Fresno were to do a community choice energy agency, obviously we don't have infrastructure here in the city, but there are several solar farms surrounding the city that we could easily tap into for these clean sources of energy.
Okay, cool. So I think we have one more question if we have time. I'm confused. This seems like something we should already be doing. What's the biggest obstacle when it comes to our elected officials?
That's a great question, and I agree. I think we should be already doing this. One of the obstacles that we're running into here with the city of Fresno is this is something new, and usually something new is, you know, something not seen as something worth taking a risk on. But we do need more community input. If we could get people, you know, on this event to reach out to their city council members, to their county board of supervisors, then your voice would be heard by those elected officials, and hopefully that would encourage them to implement this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Destiny. I think, Michael, at this time, are we continuing on or taking a quick short break?
So we did, I'm very happy with all the discussion going on. We have gone a little over time. We originally had a 5-minute bathroom break scheduled. That was supposed to have started over 5 minutes ago. So I'm open to just blowing through that if you guys are all comfortable doing so, just in the interest of time. Can I get a thumbs up? That seems like a good idea. Okay. Thanks, Marissa. So I guess then I'll go ahead and pass it over to my good friend and colleague, Keyshawn White. He's got this healthy air experiment he's going to tell us all about.
Get myself. Hi, can everybody hear me? All right, great. So my name is Keyshawn White, Fresno native. So I want to just kick in and just pretty much brief introduction. So I was born and raised on the southwest side of Fresno. If y'all familiar to that area, it's the 93706 area code. And so pretty much me growing up in this area, I have faced a lot of obstacles. One of them which is gang violence and also just violence in total. But also the environmental factor is also I suffer from asthma and other respiratory issues. And that kind of like limited me from doing a lot of things growing up. So that kind of kept me in the house, and from there I kind of just pretty much was in tune to the Science Channel, like, and like so. In other ways, I was trying to pretty much find my outlet and like figure out what can I do to pretty much better myself, especially since I can't be as active as I want to be. So then I got connected to a community group called Fresno Boys and Men of Color. Where they advocate pretty much about the things that the youth feel like is important to them. So they don't really pretty much pick a specific cause that they feel important. They mostly lead it to the youth to pretty much kind of navigate the way they want to pretty much advocate in. And at that time, we was advocating for the parks, pretty much the green spaces in Fresno, and how pretty much the ones that's located in frontline communities are pretty much damaged, not kept up to date, have a bunch of homeless problems and pretty much poverty around the area. I pretty much don't want people to actually send their kids to these parks where they're pretty much vacant and just pretty much left there for looks, pretty much. And so that kind of transitioned from me not knowing what I wanted to do and to pretty much seeing what's going on in my community and me wanting to make it better. And that from there, I kind of got to figure out why or how I'm going to make it better. So we just kept pretty much going. We did a bunch of park cleanups. We did a park cleanup at Romaines Park. That's located off First. Yeah, First. Yeah, located off First and Olive. So that was our first park cleanup that we did. It went great. We pretty much planted a garden. And at that time, they was actually revamping the skate park. So it's kind of like all there again. And also it was one of the main parks I went to as a child, and also to see it kind of pretty much be refurbished and are made better for the youth, and also just like seeing it from the start of nothing pretty much to now was pretty much how I say sparked up pretty much a big flame in my heart to pretty much keep this advocating going. And so I was 16 at the time, or my mentor Marcel told me about the pollination project and their impact grant of $1,000. And so pretty much you could get the grant by creating some type of project that not only ties in your passion, but also your community, and finding some type of way to broadcast that to your community. And that can pretty much be from any type of field. So my brother, he came up with music and pretty much creating like a radio show that kind of hosts local talent. Then my other cousin wanted to do some type of sports event to pretty much bring the youth in the frontline communities out, and to pretty much have them pretty much go out there and just play around and just have fun and whatnot. And then on my end, I wanted to pretty much figure out why people in my community of the southwest side of Fresno are suffering from higher level of asthma than the northern partners, our northern neighbors. And from there, we had to kind of figure out how we're going to go about that. Because like, so it was kind of difficult at the time. Like, we just can't pretty much go and just start studying the air quality, because there's so many variables with air quality. And so we kind of make it as solid as possible for our readings. And especially when you're broadcasting readings about air quality, you got to be really packed with those. Like, you can't really have too many holes into pretty much how you went about your experiment, or they're going to call it not not usable, or it's not pretty much, we can't use this to show your community that you're living worse than the northern neighbors. So what me and my mentor, thank you. What me and my mentor did was we cut Fresno into 4 quadrants. We labeled them N1, N2, S1, and S2. Then we randomly identified 5 schools in each quadrant. And then we went out and studied particulate matter 2.5 and 10, TVOCs, humidity, and the temperature. And then at that time, when we was doing when we was out there pretty much collecting data, there was a lot of fires going on northern. So we have to take that into effect, and also kind of like work around it, because there'll be days there'll be high burnings up there, and it'll be like air quality will be super put to where we don't even want to do the readings that day. So it kind of took us a minute to actually get some real solid readings. And from there, after we got all our readings, we put it down in a spreadsheet, then we averaged them out. And here is our results. So as you can see by the map, is the N1 area, the N2, the S1, and S2. Now, so from there, we created this website to pretty much broadcast to our community, and so they can actually have a visual to see the difference between the air quality between us and our northern neighbors. And that's pretty much from there, it sparked a flame in a lot of nonprofit world, a lot of community organizations really was tuned in after this, and was really at the edge of their seats, like what he's going to do next. Like, after he just posted this data, like, he just can't leave us high and dry after that. So me and my mentor, we went back into the office that he was pretty much running out at that time. We sat down and started brainstorming some ideas, and pretty much how can we keep moving forward with this energy that we got now. And we sat down for like a cool 3 hours, and we was like, let's come up with some type of monitoring system that can show our community in real time that the air quality that they're breathing in. And for us, we feel like that was appropriate, because at the time we were using the RAN system in Fresno, which is kind of updated hourly, and the monitoring where the monitors are set up is not really supporting the frontline communities. So we really felt that was important to actually create some type of monitoring that not only support the frontline communities, but also can broadcast readings in real time or frequently as possible. So then from there, we have to kind of figure out how we're going to do this. Like, this was pretty much the idea at first. So we have to kind of lay down the stones to actually start stepping. So we connected with some local air coalitions. CVAC was one of them, where they showed us the purple air monitor. And what's so important about, or what I love about purple air monitors, is that they read PM10 in real time. So they read it by minute. And also it's an open, what's the word for it? Sorry. Let's just say we could pull their data without asking them. So it's pretty much open for us just to grab the data and to broadcast as part of our app. So we don't have to go through no type of security protocols, or we don't have to sit through no long calls to make sure we're not trying to do anything fraudulent. So then from there, we applied for another grant through the Pollination Project. No, sorry, not Pollination Project, the California Endowment, to where they pretty much offered us a grant of $5,000 to where so we can purchase monitors and then create the database for the app that we was creating to connect to the monitors. And then I was able to actually set aside a little bit of money for the team that I picked out to help me create the app, and we was all able to get paid $1,000. And so from there, me and my team, we created an app. We hosted an app release party last year in June, and it went great. It went fantastic. We all pretty much went up there and spoke on what we did on our behalf of the app, or our little parts of the app where we worked on, and just pretty much me seeing Black and brown youth was able to create a high-level app. Well, pretty much with just a mentor teaching them was so powerful in the time. It was like, and especially because I was so young at this time, and it was like, this is some next level ish, because not only we have factors of the community of the environmental aspect of it, but then we have pretty much the mentor aspect of it was also a very key, powerful aspect, I feel like, because just tying that in together would kind of fueled them to, many of the people that's part of my team went out and to kind of, I kind of lost it. They kind of went out and wanted to create their own projects. So
if you could wrap it up, and then we can move on to questions. I'm sorry.
All right, most definitely. And right now, my work right now, I'm involved with Fresno Sunrise, and just pretty much the advocating of the Green New Deal in Fresno is pretty much what I've been working on mainly as of right now in 2020.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so our timer had ended up getting booted off, so we're having some technical difficulties. Finger, are you back on?
Yes.
All right,
okay,
I'm back.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll use up some time for questions. Due to COVID causing statewide park closures, what kind of green space alternatives do you think could become available for youth in impacted areas struggling for healthier air?
Oh, sorry, can you say that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Due to COVID causing statewide park closures, what kind of green space alternatives do you think could become available for youth in impacted areas struggling for healthier air?
That's a good question. So it's kind of a hard one, because the way of everything feeling right now, everybody's so timid and stepping outside and actually kind of going outside. So I feel like if there's possible kind of connecting with your community, local community organizations, and trying to find them to push some type of, not mass, but a group event in some type of sort, or it's pretty much, even if we have to get on a type of Zoom call and do like a little workout outside, and just everybody just pretty much trying to stay active. It's just pretty much, it's the initiative of how much you really care about, like, kind of getting your community outside and pretty much trying to stay active. But I feel like just pretty much it's in the work of community organizations, because they're tied in with the youth without, you feel me, kind of call people multiple times. It's just like, I feel like you just gotta kind of work out as a group. Kind of doing it singly is kind of gonna be kind of difficult, and people might not care as much.
Yeah, definitely.
In shorter words, put a cause behind it, I guess.
Right, yes. Okay, we have another question. This is great work. Thank you so much for sharing and dedicating your time. This is accessible, but has this been given to our representative, presented to City Council? That way they can take this much more seriously. And is there any way that Fresno State can help?
So yeah, I actually have some good relationships with what's his name? District Miguel. Yeah. So Miguel, he's aware of pretty much all the work I've been doing. He's actually one of the main ones, city council members that kind of been keeping track with my work. So in terms of him reading the data and looking at it, how I feel like me personally, I feel like he's not taking it as personal as I feel like he should be, especially being that the city council member of that area. But he's aware of pretty much the diversity and air quality between the two parts of Fresno. And so it's just me on my end, it's pretty much pushing that drive and just keep going and keep equipping my community with this information so they can just pretty much back with we need to do something, and to where he already knows what's going on. He's educated about what's going on. He knows there's youth out there that knows what's going on, that's actually pushing the initiative of cleaner air. So it's just pretty much with the community backing me and other youth backing me, there's no other way he can just go about it without being going about this situation untouched. So the more pressure we apply on it, he's going to have to do something about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do we have time for another question, Fing?
Yeah, we've got one more question and then we should move on.
Okay. Is there work that Keyshawn can do with CCEJN, Central California Environmental Justice Network? I'm not too sure if maybe you want to answer that. Like type it up or talk to. Because I know you came in a little bit later, so do you know Central California Environmental Justice Network?
I'm not too familiar with them.
Okay, we will definitely send their contact information because they're a really great organization that's been working on a lot of different projects. So
great.
Just more support for everything that you've already been doing. It's such an amazing job.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Keyshawn, for joining us today.
But I got the Earth Day live event I gotta hop back on too.
Yeah, Keyshawn's actually coming from another event that he's hosting today. So we thank you for making time to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so doing okay on time here. Thank you everyone for sticking with us. So now next we have CVAC. Cynthia, I can either share the slides myself or you can share your screen.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead and share your slides. I don't think I have. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. One moment here. Okay.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is staying safe and doing well during these tough times. I'm Cynthia Pinto Cabrera, the policy assistant for the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition, also known as CVAC. Just a quick shout out and thank you to Fresno State Sustainability for hosting this event. Next slide, please. So some quick little background about CVAC. We were founded in 2003. We are a not-for-profit coalition of 70 plus member organizations that cover a variety of environmental issues in the Valley as well as throughout California. So CVAC's main goals and purposes and visions and missions, we work towards awareness, we act as a watchdog, and we mainly advocate for policy that mobilizes communities to create clean air in the San Joaquin Valley. Next slide, please. So as you may know, the San Joaquin Valley has some of the worst air pollution issues. We consistently rank at the top 10 for having the worst air pollution in the nation. Recently, yesterday, just the American Lung Association released their 2020 State of the Air report, where counties such as Fresno, Madera, Hanford, Bakersfield, and Visalia are at the very top for the most polluted cities. So there's two main pollutants that CVAC deals with in the San Joaquin Valley. So the first is particle pollution, PM 2.5, that was previously mentioned, and ozone, that is commonly known as smog. These two types of pollution, once inside your body, they can have various health impacts and cause lung and heart diseases such as asthma, declined lung functions, and a variety of cardiovascular diseases. So these are some serious issues that we're dealing with here in the Valley. Next slide, please. You can click through, it's a little animation. So if you were to take a piece of particle pollution and put it under a microscope, you would see that half of it comes from ammonium nitrate. And that is comprised of a lot of chemical compounds that can come from like dairies and fertilizers. You mix that with nitrogen oxides that can come from mobile sources, that mainly come from mobile sources, and you'll get half of what the particle pollution is. Next slide, please. And the second largest component of this particle pollution comes from carbon. And that comes mainly from a lot of combustion sources throughout the valley, such as agricultural burning, residential burning, locomotives, combustions, and surprisingly, a lot of charbroiling that happens, like Carl's Jr., Habit Grill, things like that, that contributes to the carbon for the particulate matter. Next slide, please. And the second pollution that CVAC deals with is ozone. Like I said, commonly known as smog. This is also a chemical reactions that happened in our air. So you take the volatile organic compounds such as like fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals that are released in oil and gas production. You mix that with the nitrogen oxides that come from mobile sources. It all stirs up with some heat in the air, and that's how we get smog. Next slide, please. So what does all this air pollution have to do with sustainability? So sustainability and environmentalism is really an interdisciplinary function that really is relevant to the air quality issues that are happening here in the Central Valley. So working on cleaning the air in the valley and getting rid of these pollutants involves the valley itself transitioning into a more sustainable community and a more sustainable space. So some work that CVAC has been involved with, we've been advocating for sustainable practice throughout various industries, such as electrification, agroecology, things that have been mentioned in today's presentations. And we also support regulations and legislations such as like the Advanced Clean Truck Rule and Assembly Bill 617. Next slide, please. So some of the sustainable practices that CVAC itself has been working on involve like the electrification of a lot of agricultural equipment and technology, limiting residential wood burning, and encouraging residents to switch over to alternative solutions, targeting wide agricultural open burnings, and supporting the transition to more sustainable alternatives such as like soil reincorporation, chipping, and things like that. And this also involves some environmental justice practices, particularly for like the oil and gas, where it's diminishing their inputs of these pollutants that they release, and also advocating for a regulatory like setback where they would be at least 2,500 feet away from community residents to lessen the impact that they get. Next slide, please. So a little bit more detail about some of the regulations and legislation that CVAC has been previously and currently involved with. So the advanced clean trucks, I know a question that came up earlier was what other electric transportation is happening around in California. And there's this advanced clean trucks initiative that is happening throughout California. So to achieve California's long-term air quality and climate and public health goals, we're going to need a transition from the conventional combustion technologies to zero emissions. And to achieve this strategy will achieve NOx reduction, so the nitrogen oxides that contribute to the two major pollutions, and greenhouse gas emission reductions. So we're going to need this so the California Air Resources Board is working on this advanced clean truck rule to promote the development and the use of zero emission heavy duty technology that is currently in the works. The final drafts are about to be released. So we've been engaged from the beginning with that, keeping up to date, providing public comment when necessary, signing up for policy recommendation letters, support letters, things like that involved around clean trucks. And another major one that we've been involved with is Assembly Bill 617. So communities and states are working together to develop and implement new strategies to measure air pollution and reduce health impacts. So every year, communities are chosen for these for this bill, for this program. It's currently on its second year running. So the first year is Shafter, California, and Fresno, California were some selected communities, and particularly in Fresno, one of the big major items and emissions reductions targets that the community is working for is things like electrifying school buses, things like that. So we've been engaged from the beginning, and currently are involved with Stockton, California, who is just getting this whole process started. So next slide, please.
You got 2 minutes left.
Thank you. So how can you get involved with CVAC? We have 2 annual events that we host. You can participate in these as a community resident or as a member. We take an annual trip to Sacramento to educate legislators about air quality in the valley and how they can support our fight for clean air. And the second the second event that we host is if you become a member, we have this annual event that goes over strategies and what our scope of work will look like for the next year. So those are the 2 annual events that we host, and then ultimately become a CVAC member. You'll get access to events that we host, events that our coalition members host, things like that. So next slide, please. And with that said, here's my contact information and website. Feel free to shoot me an email, a phone call, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cynthia. We do have some questions coming in. So how do you think Tesla's electric semi-truck will affect your work?
So yeah, Tesla has definitely been a leader in the electrification of everything. So with the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, the California Air Resources Board is trying to set a mandate for manufacturers to have a certain amount of electric trucks be manufactured. So Tesla is just getting a head start on all of that with the Advanced Clean Trucks. Hopefully, before many of our climate goals are needed to be achieved, a lot of manufacturers are going to need to meet a certain percentage of manufacturing electric heavy duty, medium duty trucks. So Tesla's really just getting a head start and kind of leading the way for these other manufacturers to continue this work.
Okay, awesome. We do have another question. Do you think that local farmers are interested in using zero emissions heavy duty technology? Is this an expense local farmers are willing to take?
So it has been a tough fight with the agricultural industry in the Central Valley, as I'm sure those who are residents of the Central Valley know the political dynamic of the agricultural industry. There has been some good traction in getting some sustainable practices. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District does offer some incentives to help them to pay some of the costs for electrifying their equipment or tractors and things like that. And they also offer incentives to switch over to more sustainable practices as alternatives to their open burning. So there is some incentives going around. We are in support of those incentives, and hopefully we continue to push for those incentives to eventually turn into regulations where it's mandated that they use these sustainable practices as opposed to open burning, and that they use electric like tractors and engines and things like that. It's been overall been a slow progress, but there is some traction going along there. So CVAC is going to continue to push for regulations, for these regulations to be stronger, and for the San Joaquin Valley Control District, Air Pollution Control District, to move past incentives and make this mandate this.
Okay, good. We have one more question. How will you be able to use data from this current period of clean air because of sheltering in place to support your clean air initiatives?
So, because of the lack of transportation, the lack of people commuting, a lot of facilities having to close or temporarily shut down, that could work in our favor. We're gonna have to take a closer look at some of the data once this is all over, but it could work in our favor to justify why a lot of these industries and polluters need to electrify or find alternatives to reduce their pollution, because as we all have seen, the air has been a lot cleaner and a lot clearer in terms of visibility. So I think it could definitely work in our advantage, but we're gonna take a closer look at the data as it starts to unveil.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think we will move on to the next presenter.
Yes. Is Mona there? Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, I'm here.
All right, great. So thank you to everyone who has stuck with us. We are almost done. We have our last, but certainly not least presenter, and that's Mona Cummings, the Executive Director of Tree Fresno.
Thank you. I'll put my name badge on.
All right.
Can we pull it up? Okay, let's just get it started. Greetings and happy Earth Day. I'm Mona Nyandro Cummings, and I'm the CEO of Tree Fresno. Tree Fresno is an organization committed to transforming the San Joaquin Valley with water-wise trees and increased green space. The organization's been around since about 1985, and it started with a telethon on Valley PBS. Since then, we've planted 47,000 trees, and we expect to hit 50,000 in 2021. Why trees? As a founder of Tree Fresno once told me, in our minds back in 1985, and it still really hasn't changed much today, the tree is the ideal solution, the ideal technology for addressing many of society's most pressing issues. It's true that trees clean the air, the water, prevent soil erosion, provide shade, help people save on utility bills, reduce stress and violence, increase property values, provide homes for animals, serve as windbreaks, capture dust and pollutants, and more. A recent study of the state of California has shown that the average tree canopy coverage in most urban areas is about 15%. In the valley, many of our cities are lucky to hit 10%. It should be noted that this area of California historically only really had native species, tree species along the riparian zones. But as my predecessor once commented to me, when you move 2 million people in, you need to plant some trees. So for decades, the San Joaquin Valley has been notorious for having some of the nation's worst air quality, with the EPA stating that the area fails to meet federal health standards for both ozone and particulate pollution. And that's been mentioned by some of our other speakers. Over the last 3 years, Tree Fresno has been funded by the state of California's Climate Change Initiative through grants managed by CAL FIRE. This funding has enabled us to plant almost 2,500 trees on school campuses, parks, churches, along streets, in mostly disadvantaged communities. The primary purpose of these plantings is to reduce greenhouse gases, which contribute to climate change. Every tree works to sequester greenhouse gases, but some do work more than others. In this case, bigger is better. So we plant big trees. If trees reduce atmospheric levels of greenhouse gases by transforming the gases into living matter, it stands to reason that the bigger the tree is, the more carbon it's storing. A large evergreen oak will have sequestered nearly 9 tons of carbon after 50 years. And longevity is important. The carbon dioxide that is stored in a tree only remains trapped for as long as a tree is alive. Once the tree dies and begins to decompose, the greenhouse gases it's sequestered will return to the atmosphere. So a big oak tree can outlive other species by decades or even centuries. As mentioned before, earlier in this webinar, there are communities across our urban footprint which are negatively impacted by pollution and who experience decreased quality of life issues. Tree Fresno works hard to hit these targeted areas so that we can plant more trees. You can visit Cal Green 3.0, which was referred to earlier, for more information. We have lots of partners, including cities, counties, public agencies, nonprofits, and private industry. We partner to support the planting of trees, the installation of irrigation, and to ensure a reliable source of water. Aside from our grant-focused work, we're also involved in a very interesting special environmental project, an SEP, which we refer to as the Fresno Trees Project. This SEP is funded through fines paid by environmental offenders through the California Air Resources Board. It's focused on mitigating near-road air pollution with a vegetative barrier constructed from evergreen trees and shrubs. Our Fresno tree sites are near busy roadways where near-road air pollution affects and impacts health and creates conditions such as asthma. The American Lung Association reports that asthma affects 24% of kids in Fresno County. An integral partner for us on this project is Sonoma Technology Incorporated, who takes on the work of measuring air quality. We hope that this partnership yields data which shows that our vegetative barriers reduce noxious pollutant flows to nearby communities. Last month, Tree Fresno completed the building of 2 of these vegetative barriers. We've been working on this for about 3 years to get them started. We built them last month, both of them along Freeway 99. This first one's located at California Street and Freeway 99 in Fresno. It required the participation from Caltrans and was comprised of 44 Mondel pine trees, which is a highly drought-tolerant species built for rugged environments. This second one in Fowler, California, was included on 2 ponding basins adjacent to Freeway 99, and the species selected to prevent the pollutants from entering the nearby communities was a deodar cedar. It's another very large evergreen tree which can have a lifespan of over 100 years and reach 50 feet tall with a canopy size of 30 feet wide. It should be noted that the city of Fowler has been a magnificent partner with Tree Fresno on this project where we planted 100 trees. When we can, Tree Fresno incorporates the use of volunteers. Hundreds of individuals each year of all ages come and plant with us. This year we wanted to increase those numbers. Clearly, being a time of COVID and decreased social interaction, we're not able to include volunteers in our work at this particular time, but we're still planting every day. We feel privileged that much of our work is done outside, so we're able to follow the regulations as we need. Last but not least, I want to mention our Tribute Tree program. I love this program because it allows individuals to be recognized by loved ones in a way that's extremely unique. Tree Fresno cares for several groves throughout the valley, many located in Fresno, where an individual has purchased a tree in the name of someone that who is living or passed. So this is an example of a tribute tree. We have trees along the Eaton Trail, Dry Creek Park, a couple locations in Woodward Park. You may have run across the tags on these trees. And we have a goal of planting a tribute tree grove in more cities across the valley. We actually work in Fresno, Madera, Kings, and Tulare counties, so not just Fresno. And on a final note, let's not forget that in reality, Earth Day is every day. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. Visit our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram pages for more information. We are Tree Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mona. That was awesome. If anyone has any questions or would like to submit anything in the Q&A or chat, please go ahead and do so. We have some time. I had a question. What has been your biggest challenge, Mona, like in your new position?
I think that it's a lot more challenging to plant trees than you would think. A lot of my prior experience working in forestry and reforestation has been in national parks and conservation lands where you can plant trees. And here in an urban setting, you have to get a lot of permits, you have to partner, you have to follow a project along for sometimes up to 3 years to be able to get the permissions and the funding available to be able to plant trees. So in reality, I can tell you it cost somewhere between $189 and $550 to plant a tree, depending on the location here in the valley for each tree.
Wow, that's crazy. So a follow-up question, have there been like certain areas that tend to be more relaxed or like allow this process a lot faster versus like maybe other areas that are more strict, and what's the difference in those?
Well, obviously when you're working with regulatory agencies, we have partnered with Caltrans. I'm hoping to work with the railway soon. We work with City of Fresno. It's just a matter of going through the process. And we have a landscape architect with Bob Borrow Architects, who has been committed to Tree Fresno. He creates the vision for us so that we're able to present something that can really paint a picture of what the future landscape is going to look like. So part of my job is actually to convince others that this is what we want to do. And we try to base that in the evidence that supports that.
Awesome. So we have another question. Would you consider having a carbon offset program?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that idea. Definitely. There's actually been a suggestion that we put a feature on our website. Maybe others have heard this as well, so that someone like you or me can go on there and we can determine how much carbon we're actually producing, and to have options like with our various organizations that are doing good work to offset our carbon footprint.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. I think we are out of time, or do we have more time for more questions? Because it's almost 2 o'clock. Okay. If there's any more questions, go ahead and submit them. I really want to thank you, Mona, so much. I'm so happy to be able to have met you a few times already and to have you participate in our Earth Day this year, even though we can't be all together in person. But at least I was so happy to know that everyone, including yourself, have been able to participate.
This has been wonderful. What a wonderful opportunity and very well organized. So we're very appreciative.
Okay, one more question. Why are trees a carbon offset if they only hold carbon for 100 years and carbon from burning gasoline is in the atmosphere for millennia?
I'm probably not the best person to answer that question. I just know that 100 years is an awful long time. And we hope to plant more and more trees to replace those trees that die or cut down. Because obviously we face those challenges where people actually cut down very good, healthy trees. So education is part of that. So we do our best to plant more and more trees throughout the valley. We plant about 2,500 trees a year at Tree Fresno.
Awesome. So there, I think someone answered that question. Dr. Wyman says they can put it in the soil. So that's how they are able to transport, and that's why they're really good for that.
They're able to store, yes.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
they're
sorry,
like transportation.
Transportation.
At least we got the question answered.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Wyman.
So I think we will wrap it up, Michael.
Yes, loving the teamwork here, and especially the collaboration amongst the different entities we brought together today. That's really at the heart of what all of this is about. And I hope that everyone who's joined us is taking away a lot of valuable information. I know I certainly am. But just in closing here, we have 5 more minutes left, and I have 5 more quick slides I just want to go over with you guys, and then we can wrap up, okay? So my initial slide in the beginning had problems before Earth Day. You know, there's issues pertaining to clean water, clean air, biodiversity. We've spoken about energy. We've spoken about environmental racism. We've spoken about equity. There's so many facets to this conversation, and there's a lot of things that we've left out. But in respect to the 3 we mentioned previously, where are we at today? Are we any better than 50 years ago? I would argue yes, but in the clean water front, at least in California, there are still, it's estimated that over 100 over 1 million residents do not have access to potable drinking water. That's certainly an area that needs to be improved upon. Clean air, we've had a lot of different people discuss about different things going on. This is a picture of the Fresno skyline in 2014. As you can see, very smoggy, almost, I would say even more so than that LA picture I had at first. And in terms of biodiversity, that is a very, very scary area for most people who study the environmental sciences or biology or ecology. It's right now there are more species, more than 1 million species now threatened with the possibility of extinction. That's more so than ever before in human history. And so not to alarm, but there are a lot of problems out there, and that's why we get together with these events. I'd like to conclude with a message from the original Earth Day organizer, who once said, "There really was no environmental movement 50 years ago. The Sierra Club National Office in 1969 consisted of 1 full-time volunteer." I know that'll certainly resonate with some of my community organizers in this group, but that's just to show that one person really can make a big difference. And the butterfly effect is very, very real, especially in these circles that we work with together. The nature of this work is all very collaborative, and going forward, we just need to work together. So additionally, I want to thank everyone who has been involved in this panel just one more time, especially the Climate Center. He hasn't spoken at all, but Mr. Woody is the executive director, and he's been letting us use his Zoom link. So thank you for that. Also Destiny and everyone else who's been a part of this. It's just been so great. Marissa, if you want to kind of take it.
Thank you so much, Michael. And like he just said, thank you everyone who participated. As we take a look back to appreciate the people who started this movement, it's important to realize how far we have come. There are over 30 local environmental organizations in the Central Valley alone. It's important to continue this growth and continue working together towards a more sustainable community. If you are interested in making an impact in the environmental movement, we encourage you to find the group that speaks to your heart. There are amazing organizations and people that have made a difference in our lives. We highly recommend being a part of this greater community and help make a difference in our world. I really appreciate everyone who took their time out of their day to participate and support, share our post on Instagram, and just everything that you guys did. It really helped us in a lot of ways. We also have a few announcements to make. We have our website. Everything's in the chat. I know the links might not be like direct, but you could copy and paste them. So we have our website link. We have Earth Day Live link that's going on. I believe they have some things going on today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Earth Day Fresno has an event on Saturday, and they're also doing a donation drive. So that way you could donate to local organizations. They have a lot of different information on there, so please make sure to look at their website. There's also going to be a presentation at 2:30, so in 30 minutes, by Dr. Susan Morali. I'm not too sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but she'll be talking about water and basically how it impacts us, especially right now with COVID-19. I believe her title of the presentation is No Water, No Hygiene. So that seems really interesting. And also, I please ask that you guys take our survey. We made a Google form, and if you guys could just give us feedback, we want to be able to calculate how many carbon emissions were saved since we did our Earth Day through Zoom. So all these links should be available in the chat. We will also try to email them to you if that's possible. So thank you guys so much for coming. I went over 1 minute, but that's close enough.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Stay safe.